retired pastor here at Queen Street United Methodist Church in downtown Kinston. The second and third chapters of 1 Samuel. Apologize for the abrupt ending last week, but I've a procedure done, and sometimes procedures aren't done when they're done. So anyway, we're going to pick it up at verse 11 in chapter 2, I believe. But before I do, found an interesting little thing. When Hannah presented Samuel in the temple, okay, she said she was lending him. Okay, she was lending him to God. All right. The word for lending in the Hebrew is se'ul, which we pronounce Saul. Just give you an idea. Anyway. So Saul's already figuring into this story because of a play on words. There's a lot of play on words in the Old Testament. You find that especially like in these narratives. When people start trying to write history, they're going to juice it up with some plays on words and some names that fit into the character. And it's just, when you have that happen, it's easier to follow the script. Okay, Eli's wicked sons. He's got bad boys. Verse 11. Then they left him there before the Lord and went home to Ramah, while the boy remained to minister to the Lord in the presence of the priest Eli. Now the sons of Eli were scoundrels. They had no regard for the Lord or for the duties of the priest to the people. When anyone offered sacrifice, the priest's servants would come while the meat was boiling with a three-pronged fork in his hand, and he would thrust it into the pan, kettle, cauldron, or pot. All that the fork brought up, the priest would take for himself. This is what they did at Shiloh to all the Israelites who came there. Moreover, before the fat was burned, the priest's servant would come and say to the one who was sacrificing, "Give meat for the priest to roast, for he will not accept boiled meat from you, but only raw." And if the man said to him, "Let them burn the fat first, and then take whatever you wish," he would say, "No, you must give it now. If not, I will take it by force." Thus the sin of the young men was very great in the sight of the Lord, for they treated the offering of the Lord with contempt. Okay, so there was a priest portion, and that got redefined under Eli's sons. Okay, I expect that they had a weight problem. Okay, the child Samuel at Shiloh. Samuel was ministering before the Lord, a boy wearing a linen ephod, which is, okay, ephods are two things. One of them is a breastplate that the priest wears that has 12 jewels in it. And the other is a linen garment. It's a white linen garment, and the ephod is worn over the ephod of the linen. You might consider ephod to be like priestly garment, okay, because it's kind of in the entourage. We would call them like vestments. And later on, when David comes dancing into town in front of the ark, he's wearing an ephod, okay, and Michal, his wife, takes issue with that, and then he takes issue with her, and anyway. His mother used to make him a little robe and take it to him each year when she went up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice. Then Eli would bless Elkanah and his wife and say, "May the Lord repay you with children by this woman for the loan, se'ul, that she made to the Lord," and then they would return to their home. And the Lord took note of Hannah. She conceived and bore 3 sons, 2 daughters, and the boy Samuel grew up in the presence of the Lord. So she's really getting that other wife back. Show you. Okay. Okay. Now Eli was very old. He heard all that his sons were doing in Israel and how they lay with the women who served at the entrance of the tent of meeting. He was not a Methodist pastor. They don't allow that. There are very strict rules about that sort of thing. Okay. He said to them, "Why do you do such things? For I hear of your evil dealings with all the people, from all the people. No, my sons, it is not a good report that I hear the people of the Lord spreading abroad. If one person sins against another, someone can intercede for the sinner with the Lord. But if someone sins against the Lord, who can make intercession?" But they would not listen to the voice of their father, for it was the will of the Lord to kill them. So it does not look as though Eli is complicit with his sons, except that he doesn't take what we would call kinetic action to stop them. Okay? But he admonishes them. Now the boy Samuel continued to grow in stature and in favor with the Lord and with the people. A man of God came to Eli and said to him, "Thus the Lord has said." A man of God, don't know if this was a godly man or if this is an official position. So it might have been a Levite, it could have been another priest, it could have been somebody who held an office that had access to Eli, or it might have just been a prophet. Okay? Came to Eli and said to him, "Thus the Lord has said, I revealed myself to the family of your ancestor in Egypt when they were slaves to the house of Pharaoh. I chose him out of all the tribes of Israel to be my priest, to go up to my altar to offer incense, to wear an ephod before me, and I gave to the family of your ancestor all my offerings by fire from the Israelites. Why then look with greedy eye at my sacrifices and my offerings, and honor your sons more than by me by fattening yourselves?" See, I told you they had an issue. "Fattening yourselves on choicest parts of every offering made of my people. Therefore the Lord, the God of Israel, declares, I promise that your family and the family of your ancestors should go in and out before me." Let me see. I promised, okay, it's past tense. "Your family and the family of your ancestors should go in and out before me forever. But now the Lord declares, far be it from me. For those who honor me I will honor, and those who despise me shall be treated with contempt. See, a time is coming when I will cut off your strength and the strength of your ancestors' family. No one in your family shall ever live to old age. The only one of whom I shall not cut off from my altar shall be spared to weep out his eyes and grieve his heart. All the members of your household shall die by the sword. The fate of your two sons, Hophni and Phinehas." Hophni and Phinehas. Okay? Don't name your kids Hophni and Phinehas. Okay? I know it's biblical. But, by the way, these are Egyptian names. These are not Hebrew names. They're Egyptian names. Okay? "Shall be the sign to you, both of them shall die on the same day. I will raise up for myself a faithful priest, who shall do according to what is in my heart and in my mind. I will build him a sure house, and he shall go in and out before my anointed one forever. Everyone who is left in your family shall come and prostrate himself before him for a piece of silver or a loaf of bread, and shall say, Please put me in one of the priest's places, that I may eat a morsel of bread." All right. What's going on? The priesthood is a hereditary office. You have to be of the Aaronic line or the Levitical line in order to be a priest. Okay? There is no mention in this prophecy that anyone who is going to be the priest comes from any particular priestly line. So, we have something that is different. We have a religious leader whose office is not dependent on by right. You have a religious leader who is going to be called of God. Okay, this is a transformation in the understanding of priesthood. Why is this important? Well, the Deuteronomist that's penning this is somebody who's living in the Persian Empire. And when they've been taken off both by the Assyrians and then the Babylonians, the people have been carried off from the place. And the whole tribal identity thing has been scrambled. They can't maintain really a familial line. And when they come back, they're going to have a high priest, but they can't really say that the high priest is Levitical or Aaronic anymore, because they've been scrambled. Okay? And my name is Levin, which indicates I come from a easy for me to say, Levitical background. Okay? No idea. No idea. You know, my great-grandfather was from Lithuania, and that was part of Russia, and it was just, you know, I don't know. I know that my calling to the ministry certainly didn't have anything to do with my lineage, except that my dad was a preacher. But that was one of the main reasons I didn't want to be one. So, you know. But this is interesting because this means that the office and the calling are being merged. And that the thing is that by right of lineage, that claim is weakened dramatically. Okay? And that has to do with Judaism at large, because this is leading up to David being the king. David doesn't become king because he has this great lineage. He's got a bunch of scoundrels and ne'er-do-wells in his background, women who are not necessarily Jewish. And it comes from your maternal line where your claim is, okay? So, I mean, my granny was an Irish Catholic girl, so, you know. Anyway. So anyway, what we have here is that Samuel has been warned. A lot of times when we talk about Samuel and Eli in Sunday school, we don't put that previous prophecy in there. People in Sunday school come out with the impression that Samuel was the first one to tell this guy what was going to happen. Okay? The fact that you had a previous prophecy that went into great depth means that when Samuel is notified, they don't have to repeat the whole thing. Okay? And they don't. So chapter 3 comes rolling out. Now the boy Samuel was ministering to the Lord under Eli. The word of the Lord was rare in those days. Visions were not widespread. Oh boy.
Hallelujah!
Hey, man! Hey, Tom.
Better be late than never, isn't it?
Well, that's right.
Absolutely. That's the thing. I'll sit right there, be fine.
All right, well, good.
Okay, thank you.
It's just not class without Tommy. Okay,
Morning,
so
everybody.
morning. So the word of the Lord is rare. Over the course of my ministry, I can attest to the fact that the word of the Lord is very often rare in churches. I have had I think 4 people over the course of my ministry who were prophets in the congregation.
Truly prophets?
Truly prophets. It's a scary thing when one of them shows up, believe me. I've had prophets, they were all women, so prophetesses, who had visions that they could not explain. But they shared the vision with me. And sometimes they were just off the wall. I had no idea what was it about. But sometimes I understood the vision. And they didn't. I've had prophetesses come up to me and say, "The Lord told me to tell you this." And they told me. And they had no idea why or what was the background or anything. And I knew it was true. Okay? Now, I was not Hophni or Phineas, but over the course of years, okay, I cut my eye teeth studying psychology and working in a mental institution, several mental institutions. And I got to see mental illness up close. Okay? And I can tell, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not certified, certifiable maybe, but not certified. But I can tell when I'm dealing with somebody who has some mental issues. Okay? These women did not have those. You might have called some of them a little eccentric, okay? But they were not mentally ill. And when they saw a vision, it was not a hallucination. It was a vision. And it was vivid. And all of a sudden, no matter what their surrounding was at the time, they were transported into the vision. Okay? It's a scary thing to be a prophet. Most people who have that gift don't want to reveal it. They don't want anybody to know that they see visions or that God speaks to them like I'm talking to you. But there are people who have this, and it's listed as one of the gifts. It's one of the gifts of the Spirit. And one of the ways that you can tell that it is a gift of the Spirit is that it transcends the individual who's presenting it. Okay? And it is not meant for malice. These things don't come out of a desire to hurt someone or, unhinge them or put them in jeopardy or anything like that. It's meant for their edification, to help them. Even when they've done something wrong, it's meant for their redemption. Okay? This prophecy that Eli gets is a horrible prophecy for him. It is a judgment. Okay? And it says to Eli something that he already knew. The consequences of what was going on was not acceptable to God. And if you persist in this kind of behavior, this is what the end result is going to be. Okay? Because you have something sacred, and we'll see how this works. Okay? You have something sacred like the ark. But because you are corrupt, the presence of the Lord can't go with you. And, we'll see how this plays out with the Philistines, but dealing with people who are prophetic, you can't just blow them off or think they're nutso, because when God is sometimes God has to speak through a prophet
Thank you.
because you're just not paying attention to the Lord. Now, there have been other kinds of things. I mean, there have been, every once in a while, I preach a really great sermon. I mean, just once in a while. Okay? But I've had 2 prophetesses in the congregation that saw me glowing while I was preaching. Well, it wasn't me, okay? And it wasn't my aftershave. It was the fact that the presence of the Lord was there in that sermon. Okay? It was an endorsement of what I was saying, much more than it was an endorsement of me. And, you just have to be aware that this gift exists. And when somebody comes, people will come and give you advice all the time. Okay? Every once in a while, they're going to give you some advice that comes from the Lord. Happens. But it was rare in Israel back then. Okay? So, this doesn't happen very much. Why is it not happening? Because everybody is doing what they think is right in their own eyes in the time of the judges. And so they're too busy making up how they're going to live their lives and not paying attention to what God is going to say. So every once in a while, God's got to talk to somebody who does not have an agenda, like a little boy. Okay? So, here we
Now,
go.
Eli was
Yeah.
not inherently a bad
No,
priest.
no, but he was
Just
inept.
He did not, make his children behave and not.
Correct.
That was basically his biggest sin.
That's correct.
And of course, what they did was a big sin.
Mhm.
Okay.
It was. It discredited the whole religious institution that was supposed to solidify the people. And, and see, this is the issue that Jesus had. Same thing when he went in and cleansed the temple. The temple was supposed to be that central focus and the thing that solidified the people and gave them an identity as God's people, da-da-da-da-da-da, and then you've got the high priest who's just a Roman appointee, and the whole system of sacrifice is a money-making deal. And he just, he was fed up with that. He was fed up with that. I have to tell you that when a religious institution gets to be that big and that invulnerable to the way they behave in office, then that institution becomes corrupt. And people will leave it because it's corrupt. Okay, and I'm not just talking about Christianity. I'm talking about Islam and Judaism. Right now, Islam is really, really, really not as popular as people think. It's one thing to be Islamic in Saudi Arabia, believe me. It's another thing to be Islamic in North Carolina. You're just exposed to too much freedom. And it makes you wonder. And now the internet is available to anybody. They can go into their closet and watch whatever. And a lot of the whatevers that Islamics are watching has to do with, why do you believe this? Why do you believe that? Christians have been putting up with that forever. And, and those are good questions for us. They are very good questions for us. But I think one of the differences is that Christianity endorses the fact that people are allowed to think and make choices. Other religions want to impede anybody's ability to think and to make their own choice. That's why we talk about having freedom in Christ. Because Christ gets into a dialogue with all kinds of sinners. Tell me about it. He sends prophets. Okay. At that time, Eli, whose eyesight had begun to grow dim so that he could not see, was lying down in his room. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord. So the lamp is supposed to burn from evening to morning. And so this is like, dark 30, this is going on. Then the Lord called, Samuel, Samuel. He said to him, here I am, and ran to Eli and said, here I am, for you called me. But he said, I did not call, lie down again. So he went and lay down. The Lord called again, Samuel, Samuel. Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, here I am, for you called me. But he said, I did not call you, my son. Lie down again. So Samuel did not yet know the Lord, and the word of the Lord had not been revealed to him. The Lord called to Samuel again a third time, and he got up and went to Eli and said, here I am, for you called me. Then Eli perceived that the Lord was calling the boy. Therefore Eli said to Samuel, go lie down, and if he calls you, you shall say, speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. So Samuel went and lay down in his place. Okay, yeah. So Eli knew the drill. And, okay, so I'm going to leave it there. Find out what God has to say to Samuel, and as we come back next week. And I welcome any questions or comments or snide remarks. So I'll see you next week, and I'm glad I made it through this session.
Thank you.
Okay.
No, that's all right. That's fine.
I am too.